smile, every hug, every kiss, every touch, every person in my life that I care about and love. But wait, maybe I'm getting too emotional. That's exactly what they say you ain't supposed to do. Suppress your feelings, never talk about your pain. Can't appreciate the sun without acknowledging it rains, right? That's right. So this a moment of clarity. And make sure you always protect your energy. You stay focused and your life gon' be lit. And you are now rocking with Celeste the Therapist. Let's go.
Hey, hi, beautiful people. So if you've never been into my podcast before, my name is Celeste. I'm a therapist from Boston. I talk to people who are doing things to empower the lives of others through sharing their story. And I come on Mondays and Thursdays to record this episode live. So you get to have all the bloopers and everything on here. And then when you listen to it on the audio, so this is an audio podcast. It started as an audio podcast. You have a nice clean cut version of the podcast. And July is going to be 3 years that I've been doing the podcast. But me and Jermaine Morris, who's my special guest today, we have a segment we created called Getting Your Mind Right. And the goal is not to tell you what to do or tell you how to do it. With anything that I do, I think my audience is people that are feeling stuck in life and looking for a new perspective. And one thing that I can say about the work that I do is that when people work with me, they don't hit the lottery, they don't get a new house. It's not that they're entering into a new relationship. The thing is that their perspective about their life has changed. And so I'm going to add Jermaine to the stream so he can kind of, we'll talk about this. And so Jermaine, can you introduce yourself to my audience, please?
Hi, I'm Jermaine Morris. I'm a certified disc coaching consultant. I'm based out of California. Majorly what I focus on working with people who are dealing with challenges or things in their life. And the premise is self-awareness without judgment. So using a DISC assessment, which is basically a test that shows our behavioral patterns of how we deal with things and challenges in life, and then kind of using that as the jump off to then addressing what's going on with us and getting us in the best position for what it is we're trying to do.
That's good. I love that. And for people who may be new to you and I, we have about 6 episodes. If you go to my website, I have a link where you can actually see all the episodes. Everything is always different. Do you think that you've always been into kind of helping people shift their mindset?
Yeah, I don't know if I've always called it that, but I think I've always been, even if you go back, I was the friend that everybody would call for help, call for advice or something. So originally I had started with a blog. And so that was, so everybody who would ask me questions, I would get the theme and then I would just start posting stuff about the blog. So I would say, before you call me, refer to your notes, like see if I've covered it before there. And then from that came the radio show, which is a cold cup of coffee. And then that developed into other programs, which developed into the stuff I do with the disc. So in some capacity, yeah, I think I've always been kind of like trying to be helpful. Yeah.
I like that. So one of the things that we're in February now, one of the things that happens every January, and I think this January in particular, a lot of people were looking for a significant change. We can all admit 2020 was really, really hard. And, for not just for individuals, but for the world. And I think that there was this assumption or this kind of new mindset that, 2021 is going to be different, which that happens every year. One of the things that sounds like you've noticed recently is this wall people are hitting. Tell me about that, what you've been noticing that's been happening.
Yeah, so I think... So revisionist history. I always say people forget what 2019 was. So people were struggling in 2019. That was when it just seemed like everybody was dying. It seemed like it was just all this stuff going on. Celebrities kept passing away, all this stuff in 2019. So everybody's like, 2020 is going to be my year. And we got about a couple weeks in. And when Kobe died, it was just all downhill.
And 2020 is like the vision thing. I think there's this thing, right? So that's another thing I think that helped people with that mindset during the 2020 time.
Yeah, and the whole last year was just such a struggle. Pandemic comes in, a lot of people losing their jobs or people getting sick, all this uncertainty, all this sort of stuff. So then 2021, people start this year thinking, okay, it's got to be better. Like it's like we're about to do some big things. It's about to be, and just from what I've been experiencing dealing with people, like it's not been better like they thought it was gonna be. It's not it's just not it's not clicking. And so it's really easy to get discouraged because now it's feeling like 2020 again. Now I'm remembering what 2019 was. Like now I got cement shoes. Now I've got the 60-pound jacket on. Like it just, now I feel heavy. I feel unmotivated. The world hasn't opened back up like I thought it would by now. Like things aren't starting to work. And so it's getting people are really starting to get discouraged early into the year.
What do you think I know that the 2021 change, there's something about like a new Monday or, a new year that gets you in this mindset. But what do you think changes from this idea of I'm going to be working on X, Y, and Z to the point of I don't think I could do it anymore, like abandoning the plan? What do you think that transition looks like for people?
So I think a lot of people thought, you hear the old phrase, new year, new me, like it's going to be a new year and just whatever wasn't working is just going to kind of fade away. And just because it went from December 31st to January 1st, nothing really changed. So, I mean, if you had a new outlook or new mindset, that's great. But situationally, circumstances in the state of the world, nothing really shifted. So for some people, it's now just 2020, December part 3. Like it's still, we're the 14th month of 2020. And so it can get real discouraging because those relationship problems didn't fix into the new year.
Yeah.
Money problems didn't fix over, job didn't fix over, so.
Right. And I think that people have good intentions around changes. And a lot of times it's happened whether we're talking about the new year or just trying to change behavior. I think that people try to do the work, but then a big part that's missing, I think, is mindset. Yeah. Like the way they think about things and the things that they're setting up to create an environment that will foster that plan of changing behavior. Does that part make sense?
Yeah. If you have to do more than just want. Like you gotta, if you are having marital problems last year, wanting them to be better is great, but there needs to be a do that goes with the want. There has to be a do that goes with the, I want my relationship with my kids better. A do that has to go with, I got to get my money in a better situation. And whatever that do is, it's probably not going to be fun. It's probably not going to be what you want it to be. And if it's not taking, because a lot of people will tell you, I've been trying to do since last year and it's still not working. And so then it's just conceding that 2021 is just going to be an extension of last year. And, the tank's empty.
Yeah. And when people say, well, I was trying to do X, Y, and Z, I said, well, what does that mean? Like let's define what trying looks like. Because I think that a lot of times the trying is just like, I really want something different. And I say to people that you can tell like what you're committed to by the actions that you're doing for yourself. Yeah. And a lot of people, unfortunately, are committed to staying stuck. And I say they're committed to staying stuck because their actions show that they haven't made a commitment to change. Does that part make sense, the difference?
Yeah. And sometimes you have a commitment to change, you just don't know how.
Yeah.
And so if you're like this, in everything, the world is a difference between 10-foot vision and 10,000 feet vision. So if you see the world 10 feet in front of you, you're literally just seeing 10 feet in front of you. As opposed to 10,000 feet, well, that's like your city skyline. That's where you can see the different sides of town. You can see where your downtown, where your parks are. That's a completely different vision. So sometimes when we have the 10-foot vision, we don't realize that the muck we're stepping through, that the hurdles we're jumping are actually a circle.
Yeah.
It takes when you can step back and see what you're oh, I'm on a track. Like I'm literally just going in circles this way, but we can't tell that when we're in it. So sometimes it's not a question of effort. You know, it's not a question of trying hard or willing or wanting. Sometimes it's just the plan. It's the, you know, it's the perspective and then the execution of doing something different. But for some people, that's it.
And I know we've talked about like kind of like this kind of stuff before, but when it comes to being able to see that 10,000 feet or the city skyline plan, and we're using this as an analogy of not just looking at your current circumstances, but being able to visualize, you know, what life could look like. How does one do that? Because this is a situation that a lot of people find themselves in, not being able to see themselves beyond where they are currently in life.
Yeah. And so part of it that I've seen is that, so first, the thought process of maybe it's not just the way I see it, you know, and so sometimes is to have to be, even if we don't necessarily subscribe to it, can I at least just look at this differently? Can it possibly be another way? Because this is the only job opportunities I have. No, this is the only way I can teach my kids. This is the only way I can get in better shape. This is the only way I can figure, like we get locked into these things.
Where does that come from? That idea of this is the only way, that kind of tunnel vision and not being able to see a different way of looking at the issue in front of you. Because it's like we keep doing the same things, expecting different results, but we struggle and we're so rigid with change. What do you think that's about?
So sometimes we have so many narratives that are on autopilot. So there are some things that we believe that we didn't create. So somebody told us this was the way it is, and we never like went back to see maybe that's where the flaw was. Or it's kind of part of some of its ego. I've been on this road for so long, I can't just, you know, to concede that I've been going the wrong direction for the last 3 years, or I picked the wrong profession, I picked the wrong major, I picked the wrong mate, like whatever that part, there may be a lack of acceptance for. Sometimes when you get beat down enough or you take enough L's, sometimes you just concede. It's always going to be like this. It doesn't matter what I do. It doesn't matter if I look at it differently. So, I mean, there's all roads lead to Rome. Like there could be a whole bunch of different paths, but you end up in the same spot of starting to feel unmotivated, starting to feel like this is getting too much, and then kind of sometimes feel like throwing your hands in the air.
Yeah, and I also find that if your environment was like that, where you didn't see people, where you see people always taking L's, not really going back to a new plan, believe it or not, you know, that's habit energy. We kind of take on that same mindset, even though we could say something about, you know, our caregivers and be like, look at them, or this is how they are. We don't even see that we're doing the same exact thing, maybe in a different way. It looks a little different, but the common theme is still there.
Or even the exact same way.
And even the exact same one. And it's so interesting how when I'm speaking to my clients and how they'll say X, Y, and Z, and I'll be like, that sounds like somebody you know, and they'd be like, oh my God, I can't believe it. And it just took that one moment of stillness to process, to be able to understand kind of that framework or that connection, so that, you know, once they see the connection, I think that it really creates something in them to really want to change, because they see what's the possibilities if they continue down that same path.
Yeah, and so sometimes it's a case of exposure, somebody else. Like, so if we just stick to our way of doing things and we only talk to ourselves, then we're just kind of regurgitating our perspective back to ourselves, and there's no new information.
Yeah.
So sometimes talking to somebody else, and sometimes we'll look at people like, well, their life ain't together, they can't give me no new information. That's not true. They have a different set of eyes,
Mm-hmm.
and they don't carry the same attachment or energy that we carry to the situation. They're not
Mm-hmm.
their kids. It's not
Mm-hmm.
their mate. It's not their job. It's not their bank account. They're looking at it from, I'm just looking at this for what you're telling me. I don't have a horse in this race, so I don't have the feelings you have. I'm not married to the decisions like you are. So sometimes just talking to somebody else, like just a sounding board, just
Mm-hmm.
don't necessarily have to run with everything they tell you, but sometimes it's just hearing something else, just another way of looking at it.
Yeah.
You know, and then sometimes with ourselves, we don't give ourselves enough credit. I don't think we not celebrating the small wins,
Mm-hmm.
not appreciating the small victories. And so when we're making headway, we're making ground, because we didn't make the full jump. We didn't realize, okay, we took 10 steps. We only talk about, well, we have 1,000 to go.
I know.
But when you acknowledge the 10, then at least there's the, I'm moving in the right direction.
Mm-hmm.
When you don't acknowledge the 10, that equals I'm standing still. And that's not true.
It's not. It's a perspective thing. I love
Huge.
that about how, and I think that with everything being broadcasted on social media and the internet, before we had magazines that came out monthly, those people in the magazines were in a different socioeconomic status than us. So we weren't really comparing. I think we did more celebrating. And I think now, unfortunately, we focus too much on what's not there than what is there, what's happening. And if we can really understand how much our country thrives off of us feeling inadequate, feeling not enough, because that's how they sell to us.
Yeah.
And so it's really important to look at how can I make me better than who I was yesterday. And how do I acknowledge all the things that I've done and not just look at what didn't happen? And that's hard to do if your mindset's not really set up that way.
Yeah, and the system is set up to look for our insecurities, to look for the things that are quote unquote wrong with us. Because when you figure out who you are, what your strengths are, what your purpose is, that creates a finish line for what you're looking for. I always use relationships always as the best example. When you figured out who you want to be with the rest of your life, that's a finish line on what every other person is doing.
Mm-hmm.
If I get married, this woman is okay. Whatever these other women are doing is irrelevant to me.
Mm-hmm.
So when you figure out what your purpose is, you're not worried about the job you didn't take. You're not worried about the city you're not in. You're not worried about. So the system is kind of structured to prey upon all the things we're uncertain about.
Yeah.
And keep us in doubt, keep us in question. Yeah, you're skinny, but you're not quite. You could be thinner. You could have more money. You could be in a bigger house. You can, and then you switch on social media and you're looking at everybody else's highlight reel. And, average person is following, 4 figures worth of people. So you're just scanning through, looking at all these people's, highlight reel. And you're just kind of like, wow, that makes me feel like I'm by myself, like I'm not moving, like I'm not progressing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think something that's huge. I was looking at this story, and they were in it, and I personally hadn't even given this perspective before. But if you find yourself you see those people who are trapped in whatever, like coal miners when the rock slide, people are trapped in tunnels, people trapped in caves, all that sort of stuff. Well, when you're sitting there trying to get out, and it's dark and it's quiet and it's damp and it's muggy and the air's getting hard, and you're clawing away, and you eventually break through. You eventually break through the surface, and that beam of light shines in.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of us get focused on, okay, the fresh air is starting to come in. Okay, the light is starting to come in. And we're like, okay, we're doing something. We don't think of, okay, the bad air is fighting out. Or we don't think, okay, the darkness is now shooting out on the other side of the wall.
Oh,
so
right.
So what you would realize is that where you're trying to get to is actually fighting to get to you. When you break a hole through, and even if it's just a quarter-size hole, there's a beam of light that shines through, not a beam of darkness that shines out.
Right.
So whatever it is that you're fighting towards, you're clawing at it to get, it's actually fighting for you just as hard as you're fighting for it.
Mm-hmm.
That oxygen is pushing in against the carbon dioxide pushing out. and the
how do
opposite gets in.
how do people keep pushing forward? How do people keep allowing that to happen? You know, to have that light come in, as opposed to stop. You know, when they see a little, sometimes people see a little something and they really stop. It gets challenging. It feels hard. And sometimes we're not used to the light. We're not used to seeing the light. We got so used to being in the darkness that probably becomes like the norm. So having that light come in may feel kind of hard too, believe it or not.
Yeah, and it's easy to believe that we're chasing it as opposed to it's fighting towards us. It's a perspective difference.
Yeah, that's
And
good.
so we get caught up in thinking that I'm running towards this, but it's running from me. And it's not.
It's not.
And so that thought process, that shift of thinking I'm clawing at this, and on the opposite side, prosperity, happiness, all those lights, pursuits, and passions, all those things that I'm fighting for, it's beaming down, waiting for me. And as soon as I show the slightest bit of breakthrough, it's beaming in on me, pouring into me. So when you get caught up thinking that everything is running from you and everything is trying to elude you, happiness is trying to shake you, that's the discouraging part. When you have the process of every time I'm running towards it, it's running towards me. It's the slight little mental shift, you know, that's inspiring.
It is. And if we start to think of it that way, and change our perspective about it, it can make the process look a little different, feel a little bit more hopeful, I think.
Yes.
And I know for a lot of people, they have never had anyone to kind of foster this type of mindset shifting, or even think in this way. It's not a way that our country subscribes to. We're a hustle bustle nation.
Yeah.
So part of a life is not how are you feeling, how are you really doing, right? It's really about like what you have and what you don't have. And so I think if we can work on changing the way that we subscribe to life and look at it in a different way about what is going to benefit me and like my purpose, what's my road to, like, what does success look like for me? Because it's going to look different for everyone. We're not all in the same category. I think that's a big game changer for people, especially when it comes to this idea of feeling like you're hitting a wall right now during this kind of season in 2021.
Yeah, and I think it's important. The mindset, if you think that you're lost and you're just kind of like, let me just post up somewhere till somebody finds me, versus someone's looking for you. Those are two different ways that you would be. If you're just like, well, I'm lost in the woods, hopefully somebody, okay, let me just get a little shelter. Let me post up. Let me get to a situation that's somewhat comfortable. And I'm just going to wait this out till something happens. Versus someone's looking for me. So I need to move to higher ground. I need to build up upon something that somebody can see, that somebody could notice. Like, so I'm not just sitting waiting for something to happen. I'm actively doing because I know somebody's looking. Like, that's a different mindset. So when we think about the things that we want to get out of our life, it's that success, that happiness, that prosperity is actively looking for you. So doing things that make yourself seen, doing things, not just waiting and hoping and wishing and wondering, but actively doing something. You want your marriage to be better. I'm like, what does this look like in real life? Okay, you want your money to be better. What are you actively doing? Downtime, maybe jobs or whatever. Am I actively studying? I'm doing things, trying to learn new skill sets to do things. I'm actively promoting myself more for my business. My thing with my kids, I don't just hope they're better one day. Okay, am I actively speaking to them more? Am I having conversations we didn't have before? Am I doing things with my spouse? I don't want us to just stop arguing, but am I reading ways to communicate better? Am I learning ways to listen? Am I new ways to approach things? Like, what are you actively doing so the life that you want can find you?
Yeah. And all of that is like discipline. It requires a lot of discipline, which is, earlier you said that it's not easy. It's hard. This is hard to do. It's not, I say if it was easy, everybody would be doing it. But it's very like hard labor. But I think that with the purpose in mind, it doesn't feel as hard because you're going towards a purpose. Does that make sense if you have your purpose in mind?
It does. And if you're genuine about what you want,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I always say with the self-assessment stuff, you know, what do you want really?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And if this is really what you want and really what you want to do, then what are you doing to get that there? What are you doing to make that happen? And so for some people I talk to get discouraged, it's the point to where they no longer want to do.
They no longer want to do what they initially thought they wanted to do.
They just no longer want to do.
Oh, okay.
Like either they were trying something, it wasn't working, they were hitting walls, they're just like, I just can't take another L. Like, I don't want to do anymore. And when you get into that space, it can become, you've almost doomed yourself to be with whatever you're at.
Yeah.
You know, that mentality of, I'm going to stop trying. I'm going to stop working on this. I'm going to stop going to meetings that help. I'm going to stop going to classes for this. I'm going to stop doing this stuff. The likelihood of you getting to where you want to get to when you stop, just hoping that somebody magically comes by and just swoops you up and makes your life better, it's probably not going to happen. So I think that for people out there who are going through things, who are finding like I said, the weights on them, and they're finding like getting discouraged about understanding that what you're fighting for is fighting for you. You know, the idea of where you're trying to get to is trying to get to you. If you quit, it quits.
Yeah.
You know, and so if it's about being, maybe it's not the task is not too great. Maybe it's just the method. Maybe it's just the way we're going about it. It's not, like I said, it may not be an effort issue. This may not be you didn't want it bad enough. That's not the question. It just may not be. It's just the way you may be going about it. And so if you're not getting to where you want to get to, and you're not seeing the light start to beam through, then maybe, like I said, enlisting somebody else, another set of eyes, talking to somebody, letting somebody else in, making somebody else aware, reaching out, getting resources, all those sorts of things.
Yeah, and all of it matters. I think enlightenment doesn't happen linear. I think it takes different things to come into play, whether it's somebody you're talking to, something you're reading, something you're listening to. There's this aha moment that takes place. Yes. It's kind of like I look at it as a gardening and how you need to add sun and water, and you need to do different things for it to blossom. And I think that's the same thing that can happen for us in our enlightenment as we're trying to figure this out. Because life doesn't come with a manual. So really thinking about it that way, so that if you do read this or listen to that and you feel uninspired, maybe that's just not it. Maybe it's something different. But don't abandon the plan that you may have for your life. If that's the case, just thinking about looking at how can I readjust it or look at it differently, or just keep going.
Yeah, the steps of implementation. You know, you can love your plant, but you may be watering it too much for that type of plant.
Yeah.
You know, some plants need sunlight. Yeah, but some don't need, but direct sunlight all the time is bad for some plants.
Yeah.
It's not a question of how much you care, how hard you're trying, just what you're doing may not be the right thing to do for the goal that you're trying to get to.
Yeah.
And so being open to understanding that I'm not seeing the results that I want to see. So maybe I don't know as much as I think I do. Or maybe I haven't got it figured out completely because I'm not seeing the returns that I want. So sometimes, that, you know, we talk about the year's theme is assess, adapt, and evolve. And sometimes in assessing where we are and figuring where we are or where we're not, the adaptation part may be, I'm not used to reaching out. So the new evolved me reaches out more.
Yeah.
I'm not used to reading books on whatever. So the new evolved me may have to start reading some books to get some new skill sets, some new ideas, some new perspectives.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You know, so looking at the way I've been doing it, if it's not working, it doesn't necessarily mean that I'm not abandoning the goal or the plan, but just the way I'm going about it, the way I'm trying to get there. And I may have reached a certain point as the old me that the new me, like where I want to go, I can't get there as this version. So it's like we keep trying to carry. I got so far as this person, but I want to get there, and it seems like I'm stuck. Yeah, well, that person, that version got us so far. But to get to here, we need to adjust some things and to make some changes and to be open to that idea and not just so stuck on this is me, this is how I am, and not be willing to make any changes.
And a big part of those changes, we talked a little bit about the things that we're doing, right? But another big piece is the people that are in our lives. And I feel like we talk about this a lot, but it can be a big hindrance if we allow it to be. What do you say about that piece of, people that may be hitting the wall, and it could be due to some of the, environment, people that are in their life?
Recognizing it, like really look at it and looking at it through the non-judgmental. We're not questioning if these are good people or not. We're not questioning if they mean us well or not. If they mean us, if they're good, like that's not the question. The question is that this is where I'm trying to get to. And if I stay in this environment with these people, can I get there this way? Like I've got friends who, some of my best friends have been friends since middle school. I'm in my 40s now. And we went from hanging out all the time when our lives were more similar to we see each other a couple times a year. Now, every time we see each other, it's like we saw each other last weekend. There's no separation in our friendship or the relationship, but our lives just look fundamentally different. And so sometimes that just happens. And we're not walking away from people because they're bad people. It's just that sometimes what they on, we ain't on anymore. Or what we're on, they're not on anymore. And if we're trying to get somewhere, then if you're trying to be a doctor, it's probably a good idea to start hanging out with doctors or people in med school. It's not crazy. If none of your friends are into that, then they're going to start pulling you towards the things that they are into, which is away from where you want to go. So it doesn't mean I don't like you no more. I can't kick it with you, nothing like that. It's just sometimes those environments are people, you stop drinking. Okay, well, your friends still drink. Doesn't mean they're not your friends anymore. But if you go hanging out with them means hanging out and drinking. If that's not what you're trying to do, then you might want to get around folks that don't drink.
And there's this like guilt that comes in with people as they're trying to understand, where they are as they start to evolve, and they feel as if they are leaving the person, or they don't want to feel like, I don't think I'm better than this other person. I don't want them to feel that way. But like you said, trying to take a non-judgmental approach. It's not about them being a bad person. It's not about, who they are, what they've done. It's about where you're trying to go. Like that's important to understand. And I know last podcast you talked about a butterfly and a caterpillar. That might help with this kind of like mindset that we're talking about right now.
Yeah, when you making these shifts in your life, the people that were around before just may no longer fit in the same capacity that they did before. The last time we talked about the difference, that the relationship between a caterpillar and a snail is different than the relationship between a butterfly and a snail. It's just the fact is that just because we changed, we're not better than them. We're just doing different things, and so when everybody's single, we're doing single stuff. But as soon as folks start getting married, then do you see the fork in the road? Like the married guys or the married girls start hanging out with the married folks, and the single folks hang out with the single folks till eventually somebody joins the other club, and then that changes. If you're, if you're the married guy, but all my friends, after everybody started getting married around the same time, once the guy got married, we kind of said goodbye. Like we just kind of were like, all right, we'll see you till we join the club. Like, we know you're not coming out with us no more. We know you're not coming. And you shouldn't really want to. If you still want to come out with us as regularly as we go out, then you might want to rethink this decision over here. But we just, all right. And then once the kids start coming, okay. So then the ones who have kids hang out with the ones who have kids.
Yeah.
The ones who are married partner up with the ones who are married. But the single ones still hang out with the single one.
I wish it went that smoothly. Like I wish that went.
It wasn't as smooth as my example. But
I think it's not as smooth because we overthink it. I think that we feel like they're supposed to always be there because they've always been there as people that you've known, and you try to hold on to something that just doesn't serve you anymore, which can keep you in a place of feeling as if you are hitting a wall, but maybe because you just need to work on repositioning the way that you're looking at that relationship, and kind of putting it in the category. And I always say, it's not like I don't have to be like, yo, Jermaine, I'm putting you in a category, but you just have to be mindful that all relationships aren't going to look the same. You can't have a blanket mindset about relationships when it comes to that.
No. And I think that, actually, I think you muted me. No? You can hear me? Okay. I saw a little thing on the screen. Sorry. I think, so I had some friends who that transition wasn't as smooth. So that does happen. But I think that when we're making changes and we're used to things being a certain way, that's when you decide, like I said, what do you want? Where do you really want to be? What is it you really want to do? What side of the fence are you trying to hang out on? And when you make that decision, then make that decision. And that decision is made with the supporting decisions that are around it. I'm going to go to get my master's degree. Okay, what does a master's degree mean? It means a lot of long hours of studying. It means no real hanging out. It means I got to be really laser focused on what I'm trying to do. It means I'm missing some family functions. It means I'm not going so-and-so's. There's a lot. You're not just saying, I want to get a master's. You're saying all the decisions that go with it. I want to get my money together. Well, what does that mean? Well, it means working more hours, but it also means going out less. And the way I go grocery shopping is now different. And where I drive to save gas is now different. And all these things, like there's all the sub decisions that go along with the decision. I think a lot of times we make a decision and we leave it up to that decision. We think that this decision is supposed to be the only one we needed to make. Yeah, I got married. Yeah, I'm married. Well, what about Monday night football and the Tuesday night basketball game, and the Wednesday night shooting pool, and the Thursday night poker game? And those are different. No, they're not. These now become the decisions that support this decision.
Right.
And so if we're not willing to make the new decisions, that's where it can become problematic in that.
Yeah, I like that. The decision, not just get stuck on a decision, but what are the other things you have to do on top of that? And maybe that piece can help somebody that may have felt like they hit a wall and said, you know what, I just said I wanted to change X, Y, and Z. I never thought about what that would realistically look like. Yeah. And I think when we start to understand what things realistically look like, then we can kind of mentally prepare ourselves for the discipline or for the pain that we may have to experience with missing some functions or whatever it is that we're trying to do. I think if we thought more along those lines, then I think that we would tend to follow through a little bit better.
Yeah. Deciding that, like me, I became a vegetarian about 6 years ago. And that was one decision. That changed then the decisions I make of where I would go out and eat or how I would shop or things that I would do. There was a bunch of other subdecisions that came around or supported around that, and so sometimes, oh, wow, I didn't even think about it. This, this, that, and the third. And I think that part happens. And so for the people who are getting stuck on things, what are your other decisions? What are the supporting decisions that go along with what it is you say you want? Mm. What does it take to facilitate that dream? It's not asking you what the dream is, but what does it take? Like when we do the assessment program, like when we go through, like one of the questions when we set goals is that what are your particular strengths will help you achieve your goal? Mm-hmm. So not only do we decide what the goal is, but now we need to personalize it. So what is it about you that's going to, now what can you do with this? Like, so let's start breaking this down, because the perspective may be, all I had to do was make a decision. All I had to do was apologize. I said I was sorry. Okay, things should be fine now. No, the apology was the first part. Now I need to see change behavior. I need to see new decisions in its place. Now I need to see consistency of these new decisions. Like, I need to see subdivisions to the one decision. I need to see you where you're not going. You tell me, okay, I'm doing this now. Okay, but what are you not doing? What did you put in its place? I don't go to the bar anymore. Okay, you don't go to the bar anymore. Get that, duly noted. Now where are you? I don't go to the bar, but you spend 2 hours extra at the gym. Okay, you're still not home. You know what I mean? Like, what did you put in its place?
One of the audience members says, it's so strange that those hanging out events were happening because you were looking for what you have now. And if you were the first to find it, then you were wrong for leaving the other behind.
I could see that if the two of us were running together and I found my purpose first, I found my direction first, and we was, thick as thieves for, a decade. And now I'm the one that's pulling towards my direction, but you don't have anywhere to go. There can be somebody could feel a certain kind of way. And it does happen.
And I don't think we should abandon our goals because of someone else being uncomfortable with the change.
So then it goes into the question of, are you upset because you feel like we're not being friends anymore?
Right.
Okay, so the question would be, so the decision is for us to remain friends. So you throwing shade or being salty or talking mess about my new life decisions, is that being a friend? No, those decisions you're making are not supportive of the one that you said you want. So it would be, okay, I feel a certain kind of way because you're pulling into this direction. So now the new decisions become, what can I do? Can I be your study buddy? I know you're going to be working this and this and this. Okay, but what can we do to still facilitate the friendship? Because the friendship is the decision. So what new sub decisions do I need to make to support the friendship decision?
Oh, I like that a lot.
So if somebody's like, I'm upset because you're not my friend anymore. Okay, but you were talking mess about me to everybody we know. You were saying this, and the third. Okay, if you're worried about us not being friends anymore, you pretty much guarantee we're not going to be.
Yeah.
So if you want us to be tight, what decisions can be made that we stay tight?
Yes. The decision, and then the sub decisions, and then like that, just what you just said, I think we sugarcoat too much around like in America. We don't know how to confront the truth. We're afraid of the truth. I think it's hard for people to acknowledge some of the hard stuff. But then we kind of all there's this elephant in the room and nobody's talking about, and we're just
the ego.
Yeah.
The ego. And so I can say honestly, I had this conversation with somebody about a week or two ago, and we're talking about honesty about stuff. And I said for years, I had two lies that I stuck to. And the two most consistent and deceitful lies I used to always say was, just kidding, and I'm fine. Those were two lines that were regularly came out of my mouth that were not true. Just kidding. If I said some slick stuff to you, I meant that. I just put a punchline on it. And I'm fine. Usually there was times where I couldn't be further from the truth. So sometimes there were things that we have stuff that where I don't want to acknowledge that you getting down your life's path is making me feel a certain kind of way about me on mine. I don't want to say that I just miss you as a friend. Because I don't want to be hanging out there on that branch like that. Because you walked away from me to follow your pursuit. So for me to say, I feel like you're walking away. Now I'm hanging out there. Now I can feel like I could be double rejected.
Dang, that's good.
So let me start throwing shade at you so it makes it seem like, I wouldn't even mess with her like that anyway.
I know.
To help push, so we're not having that honest, transparent moment. But that's where we look at, what do I want? I want us to still talk. I want this closeness. I want this whatever. Okay, so I need to make these decisions that support that.
That's really good. I like that a lot. Now, for people that are like listening to this and find themselves feeling like inspired by this idea of, making this decision and creating these sub decisions because they've hit a wall.
Yeah.
What would you say that, like, what would be the steps that you would tell them to do right now?
So the first question is what is the thing? What is it that I want? What's in my mind? What's on the other side of this wall?
Mm-hmm.
So what does that look like? And so if I can say, if I'm trying to get my business off the ground, like that's what I'm trying, and it just feels like whatever I do, it just don't seem like anything works. Okay, what decisions did I make to get my business off the ground? Well, I started advertising. I started doing this. I started doing that. Okay, well, let me start looking at those things. Am I good? Is my advertising working? Do people know about my business? They just don't like it? Or does nobody know what I do? I'm trying to be the best in this particular thing. Okay, well, do people speak of me in the conversation of the best? So am I as good as at this as I think that I am? Like, really start looking at the questions that support what it is that you're shooting for. I give all this effort. I'm trying to, the friendship stuff. Friendship keep falling apart. I'm the one who does this, and this. Okay, well, I get it when you're talking, but when you're listening, what do you keep hearing? Because your perspective is you're the great friend and they're the bad one. But what are they saying back to you? What they're saying back consistent with how you see things? Okay, well, then there's a gap. And a lot of times that's the thing. It's the gap. It's the space. For whatever it is we're trying to get to, the place that we're stuck in is the space. So what's in that gap that we can fix? What's in that gap that we can do something different? It's not was it Einstein's definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. But Webster's definition of perseverance is continuing upon the same course or action, regardless of previous failures or outcomes. So you can have an internal argument with yourself. It's not, I keep doing this. I'm not crazy. Like, I'm persevering. Like, I know what I can get to. Okay, so let's just shift this a little bit and see if something changes. Let's look at, okay, maybe you're doing it the right way at the wrong place. It's not how you're doing it, it's where you're doing it. It's when you're doing it. It's who you're doing it with or who you're doing it to. So let's really look at what we're doing. Because if you have that much passion and that's really your purpose and your dream, this is your goal. You're trying to break through this wall and get that beam of light that shines through, and this is truly what you're going for, then let's look at how you're doing it. You could be killing yourself banging the wall, but the sunlight's behind you. You're killing yourself with a full amount of effort, but you're digging deeper into the mountain. Let's just turn you. Let's put your ear to the face of the wall. Which side changes temperature? Put your ear to the wall. Can you hear anything on the outside versus what sound is more dense? Like, there's things that you can look at and questions that you can ask to see, is this the right way I'm doing it? And if I can't see it, ask somebody. This ego of, I got to do everything myself, self-made, self this, self that, whatever. Like, you want to get there or not? Like find some people that you trust that are honest, or find people who are successful in that field. Find somebody who's got their own business off the ground. Find somebody who's been married for 20 years. Find somebody who's raised up children. And it's not good or bad. You can find somebody who's been married to 3 different people in 10 years. They can tell you some promising information about marriage because they've made probably most of the mistakes you can make. Their kids don't have to be Rhodes Scholars and doctors. Their kids can all be felons. Guess what? They can tell you some tips about what they did or didn't do when it came to raising kids. This idea that we can only talk to successful people is not true. Just get some other perspectives, some other ways of looking at stuff. A homeless man can teach you a lot about money. He can tell you everything I should have did and didn't do.
Right. Yeah.
You don't get financial advice just from rich people, but being able to get another perspective and being open to it when we hear it.
Yes, it's the openness of it. I think that's good. One of the things, this was really good. I think one of the things that Jermaine does really well is I feel like you're like a self-assessment guru. where
Nice. So
you
kind.
really help people kind of become aware of what's taking place around them in their life. And I think that once we become self-aware, it's a game changer. Tell people a little bit about your program and how they can become self-aware. And it's we have a whole podcast kind of dedicated to his program. I forgot what episode it is. I'll put it in the link in the show notes. But there's if you go to CelesteTheTherapist.com/getting your mind right, you will find this episode called the DISC assessment, DISC. Tell people a little bit about what you're able to do when people kind of work with you around this self-awareness piece.
Yeah. So the DISC assessment in itself, it's a test which shows our preference. That means that's how we deal with everything, but our preference to how we deal with problems, people, pace, and procedure. So basically, based upon this test, we can see how an individual, how much control they have when they make decisions. If they make them quickly, if they have more of a tendency to defer, how you're interacting with other humans. Do you really get charged up, social, love being with people? Or are you a little more quiet, withdrawn, reserved? More system, structured based, how you follow rules, protocol, all these sorts of things. So based upon the way we do something, then we can look at where our life is or isn't. So if we know how, we're already starting with the base point of, I'm great to make a decision, but I don't necessarily get all the information. I'm just all about the results. Or I may take forever to make a decision because I want to make sure I have all the information. Am I inclined to procrastinate? Do I get anxiety in social situations? Do I get distracted because I'm too social? All these things start to come up. So having that base point with the assessment, then we can then look at whatever challenges that we're dealing with. And we have a tailor-made way that an individual operates. So we're not using theory and blanket statements and all this sort of stuff. It's like, no, you specifically do this. And then this test also shows our adaptive. So natural is who we are naturally, but adaptive is who we become under stress or pressure. So you may say when you're cool, calm, and collected, you make logical decisions, you're relatively social, you have a good system. But when your cage gets rattled, you abandon the system and just make impulse decisions. All that stuff shows up in the test. So if we know that, we can address these things, and then the sub decisions, okay, let's put some stuff around us to keep us in a space to where we don't get the cage rattled. Let's put some practices, and when the program, we take activities. So it's not theory. So whatever a particular challenge somebody is going through, we take actual actionable steps and activities to work on that particular thing in a real life scenario. Mm-hmm. So we're not all just in the book clinical terms. It's like, okay, what happened in your real life? Here's some tools to deal with this specific situation based upon the way that you respond to something.
Yeah.
And so the whole program it's tailor-made for each individual. And
Mm-hmm.
so we do the assessment, one-on-one coaching, get somebody. I say, I'm not a doctor, so I don't diagnose or prescribe. I'm not here to tell you what's wrong with you. It's just self-awareness without judgment. Let's give a real world account of where we are, how we do things, how we move. And if we're okay with things then it's a good diagnostic. But if we're having challenges and things we want to address, then we've got a clear-cut way to address them and get to a position that we are okay.
Yeah, that's good. And if you're somebody that is struggling with trying to become self-aware, Jermaine's the perfect person. A lot of people have found so much clarity just through the test and then working with him. There's a lot of clarity that people are able to get. And I think that, like I said earlier, I believe that it's not a one linear road to understanding. If you feel like you're so far off, I think there's so many different things that we can do to help ourselves with the understanding. And being self-aware is, one of the most powerful things you can add on to your life because it's a game changer. Everything changes. So many of us have been on autopilot, at no fault of our own. It's just kind of the environment and the way that our systems have been designed. But once you step away from being on autopilot and realize, the way these systems are, you will fight like hell not to be a part of the system. Like I can't ever see myself subscribing to the system because it just doesn't serve me, of just kind of going and doing just to do, and operating on autopilot. It just doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel like I'm in control. This feels better. The self-awareness feels a lot better.
Yeah. And even if you decide, okay, I just want to float down the stream. Like, I just want to just go with the flow, or just go with whatever. At least you do.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so you're choosing to.
Yeah.
And I think that there's something that's very empowering about just making the choice, making the decision. Even if I decide there are these things that could be better, these could help me, I'm just not going to do them. Okay, at least you know. And if that decision ever changes down the road, you're aware of the areas to work at.
Yes.
And it's also very empowering, I believe, when we can say, okay, I actually can control some of these things in my life. Like, I can control the way I respond to things, and that how I am is not, that's how I am. And this, you just got to, this is just how I was born. It's how I've always been. You just got to just get used to it, and all that sort of stuff that we tell ourselves, that our behaviors are somewhat, on a molecular level. Like, the way that we deal with problems, that's just my DNA.
Right.
Like, no, these are behaviors.
Yeah.
These are things that you have switched up and changed all during the course of your life. The way you were in the first grade is not the way you were in the sixth grade. It's not how you were in the ninth grade. It's not how you were as a senior. It's not how you were in your college. It's not how you were in your single. It's not how you were when you're married. Not when you have kids. Like, you change your behaviors all the time. But sometimes we get this notion of, if it's something we don't want to change or think we can, then we put those in the category of, well, that's just how I am.
I know.
And I can't change. Yeah, you can.
Yeah, it definitely it makes it easier to stay not doing anything, because you've told yourself that. You give yourself that excuse.
Yes. And built-in excuses are a major reason that we get stuck, because they're very limiting.
Yeah.
And as soon as we give ourselves an out, as soon as we give ourselves a built-in excuse, it takes the energy out of going towards the goal. It just sucks the wind out the sail when you come with a built-in excuse.
It really does.
But when you operate under the, no, I'm gonna get this done.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm just gonna do it, as opposed to, well, I had a long day yesterday, and the kids was this, and my boss was that, and so if I don't do it, and you start building all these, all these reasons why we can't get stuff done. All these reasons why we have if we fail, it's not our fault. All these built-in reasons why, if things don't go the way that we thought they could, there's environmental, it's these town, it's this state, it's these people, it's this whatever.
The state one, I hear that a lot.
Oh yeah. You're not a failure because you live in Michigan. There's a lot of successful people in Michigan. There's a lot of successful people in Texas. A lot of successful people in Oregon. Like your marriage didn't fail because you live in Florida. You didn't get a D.
Well, Florida's a little different. That might be true.
Hey, I ain't gonna talk about them Broward County, Dade County folks. Leave them alone.
Let me stop. I have a lot of listeners in Florida. Shout out to Florida. Y'all rock with me hard.
Tampa, Jacksonville. So but just giving ourselves those built-in outs are difficult. So the big thing is, when we hit these walls and we start to feel ourselves getting discouraged, that just looking at, what is it that I'm trying to get through? What decisions am I making? What's the culture around what I'm trying to get through? Florida.
She's in Florida, so I don't know why I did that, because sorry, Crystal.
I live in California. We get blamed for all kind of stuff. We get all kind of, everybody talk about we weird out here. But just looking at not getting discouraged. And if it feels like all the different ways I'm looking at it, all the different ways I'm approaching it still don't seem to be connecting, then to being able to get out of our ego and get out of the presence we want to present, and asking somebody. Yeah. And getting a second set of eyes on something. Yeah. And just if nothing else, just to hear them out.
Yes, I love that. Thank you. That was good. I appreciate you. I don't have the Oh, thank you. I'm getting backdrop. I'm gonna mute you for 1 second. I don't have the date that Jermaine's coming on next month, but Jermaine will be back next month, and we'll be doing the same thing. But I do encourage people, if this is your first time listening to us, and you enjoy like his mindset. I really love the way he thinks and processes. It feels very accessible, very tangible, and it's really solution oriented. So if you do find yourself feeling stuck, I highly encourage you to check out his other episodes that he has with me, and check him out. He has the coaching program, the DISC assessment. Even if you just do the DISC assessment, it's a great start. People have given him high reviews. So thank you, Jermaine, for being here and sharing your gift with the world.
Oh, thank you. I always appreciate. I always enjoy. I always feel like we just talk it.
Yeah.
So I like it. It's always just a good conversation, and I always appreciate doing this with you. And you're very insightful. You are a great host.
Thank you.
It's always enjoyable.
Thank you. That makes me feel good. All right. So thank you so much. We will see you next month.
Yes. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
So that was a wrap. Website. Oh, sorry. What did you say? Website, social media. Shoot. I know, right? So let me actually move this banner. Sorry. Let me get my life together. There we go. So yeah, I usually ask where people can reach him. So if you go to teameffort@gmail.com, you can email him there. And his social medias are, let me just tell you what it is. And for people listening, it's going to be in the show notes. But everything, you can find his social media, J Morris CEO. J Morris CEO. You can find his social medias everywhere. Instagram, YouTube, Twitter. And then his email is teameffort@gmail.com. If you do want to take the DISC assessment. And if you want to check out older episodes and just want a link to all of them, if you go to CelesteTheTherapist.com, there's a link there, Getting Your Mind Right. I am working on my website, but I do have a link for all of those episodes, which is accessible. Thank you. So thank you guys so much. If you've never been in here before, make sure you share this episode. If you're watching me on YouTube, make sure you like this episode and share it. If you want to learn more about me, go to CelesteTheTherapist.com. I do have a community called Shifting the Way You Think, where there's 2 different classes, Healing the Inner Child and All About Love. That can be found at shiftingthewayyouthink.com. The next time it's going to be open is in April. So it's open 4 times a year because it does require a 12-week commitment. So it's not no get fixed quick class. It's very intentional. There's homework. There's a lot of different things that happens. So it's not for everyone. I'm clear about that. So I don't want people to just sign up because I don't want you to waste your money. It's definitely something that requires a lot of intentionality. So you can go to shiftingthewayyouthink.com to check that out. And then to learn more about me, Celeste the Therapist, you can also find me on all social media platforms by searching Celeste the Therapist. I'll be back on Thursday to talk about relationships with Jeff. I'll be back on Thursday to talk about relationships with Jeff. So 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And until next time, I will talk to you later.
Smile, every hug, every kiss, every touch, every person in my life that I care about and love. But wait, maybe I'm getting too emotional. That's exactly what they say you ain't supposed to do. Suppress your feelings, never talk about your pain. Can't appreciate the sun without acknowledging it rains, right? That's right. So this a moment of clarity. And make sure you always protect your energy. You stay focused and your life gon' be lit.